Found out my girlfriend and her best friend planned a secret move. So I moved out and started over after a boarding pass and an access log exposed the plan. I caught money leaving our future flight fund, sat in HR while they took back her bonus, and moved out to take the Portland job alone. I knew something was wrong the day I saw her best friend's name in an access log at work. At the airport, most lines of that report are boring. Staff badges in, badges out, discount tickets booked on the employee portal. But that morning one line jumped out at me. Under booked for, next to Keisha's ID, was Mara's full name and a one-way flight code I didn't recognize. My name is Rafi. I'm 40, and I'm an operations supervisor at a small regional airport in Fort Collins, Colorado. In simple words, I sit in a room with radios and screens and make sure every plane that lands and takes off follows the plan we filed for it. At work, I have one rule I repeat to my team over and over. Always check the flight plan, I tell them. If you skip that, everything else can look fine while it's secretly going wrong. At home, life felt settled. Mara and I rented a 2-bedroom condo on the north side of town. There was a bike hanging on hooks in the hallway we both pretended we still rode every weekend. A chipped teal kettle on the stove that whistled too loud. The smell of cumin and coffee almost every morning because I like to cook late and get up early. Mara was 37 and a nurse at Powder Valley Hospital. She worked nights on a med-surg floor and had been back in school finishing her BSN degree. Her job came with rules, the kind you sign your name under. No taking big gifts from patients, no hiding medication errors, no walking off a contract without paying back a sign-on bonus. She took it seriously, or at least she said she did, and I believed her. We weren't married, but we'd lived together for 4 years. We shared a savings account we called our future flight fund, half joke, half plan for a house or a trip. We talked about kids in a vague someday way. Most days, we just tried to line up our schedules so we could eat the same dinner. The day of Mara's graduation, the campus fieldhouse was packed. The air smelled like hairspray, sweat, and cheap nachos from the concession stand. Rows of folding chairs stretched from one end to the other, caps and gowns a sea of green and gold. I sat with her family, clutching a bouquet of sunflowers, watching her file in with her class. When her row stood, Mara turned her head and found me in the bleachers. She gave me this small, nervous smile that always made me feel like the only one in the room. 2 people behind her was Keisha, her best friend from the hospital. Keisha was the kind of person who filled any space she walked into. Red lipstick, tattoo peeking over her collar, quick hands, loud laugh. After the ceremony, everyone spilled out into the bright June sun. People were shouting names, holding signs, taking shaky videos on their phones. Mara's family rushed her with hugs and flowers. I waited off to the side near a stone wall, giving them space. That's when Keisha appeared beside me out of nowhere. She was still in her gown, cap crooked, eyes a little too bright. She slipped something flat into my hand so fast I almost dropped it. It was a printed boarding pass, folded once with a sticky note wrapped around it. "Take a look at this," she said quietly. Her voice didn't sound like her usual bold self. Before I could ask anything, she squeezed my fingers, turned, and disappeared back into the crowd. I stood there for a second with my hand closed around the paper, heart thudding. My first thought was that it was some surprise trip they'd planned for me. A joke maybe. We'd talked in passing about visiting Keisha's cousin in Portland someday. My second thought was that this felt wrong. Later, when the crowd thinned, I slipped into the bathroom and unfolded the papers. It was not a round-trip ticket. It was a one-way flight from Denver to Portland on July 2nd in Mara's name. It was non-refundable. The sticky note had 5 lines in Keisha's rushed handwriting. "If you love her, put her on this flight. Do not let her sign anything before then. She won't listen to me. I used my discount, just pay me back later. Please." On the drive back to town, the ticket burned in my pocket. Mara rode in the passenger seat, robe folded over her knees, her cap tossed in the back. Her parents were in their own car behind us. The sky over the front range was wide and washed-out blue. You were quiet back there, she said, glancing at me. You okay? Keisha gave me something, I said. A ticket. For you, one way to Portland, July 2nd. With a note begging me to put you on it instead of letting you sign anything. You want to tell me what that's about? She blinked, then laughed, light and a little breathless. Oh my God, she actually did it, Mara said. I told her not to, she's so dramatic. She got an offer from a hospital out there and she keeps trying to drag me west with her. So you haven't talked about actually going? I asked. She reached over and squeezed my arm. Raffi, relax, she said, still smiling. She's my best friend, but she's impulsive. I have a job here. I have you here. My parents, everything. She probably bought it after a night shift. I'll talk to her. We'll sort it out. Her voice was sweet, warm, easy. For a moment, I wanted to believe that was all it was, a friend making a big gesture out of love. But in the back of my mind, a small voice whispered my work phrase. Check the flight plan. In my line of work, if something big is scheduled and you don't know about it, you don't just shrug. If you ever see a one-way ticket with your partner's name on it and you've never once talked about moving, here's simple advice. Do not wait a month to ask what's going on. Ask that day. You don't have to accuse. Just ask until you understand. Mara's graduation party that night at her parents' house was loud and bright. There were string lights in the backyard, the smell of grilled chicken, kids running in circles. Her father toasted our girl who's finally going to have a normal schedule, and everyone laughed. No one mentioned Portland. A big part of the pressure around Mara's life came from that word, normal. Her parents had paid part of her tuition and signed on as co-signers when her hospital offered a sign-on bonus for agreeing to a 3-year contract. She was due to sign the final paperwork on June 30th. They talked about it like it was just paperwork, but it was a big lock on her future. That weekend, on Sunday night, I sat at our dining table with my laptop open, paying bills. The chipped teal kettle hissed softly on the stove. I logged into our joint savings account, the Future Flight Fund, to transfer money for her student loan. On the statement, a new transfer line caught my eye. 2 days earlier, Mara had sent a chunk of money to an account labeled with Keisha's last name. The memo line said, "Ticket plus deposit." The amount matched almost exactly the price printed on the boarding pass. That was my money proof, not in a wild, spy way, just a quiet record that said this was not a joke. They had a shared plan. She was paying her back. That night, while Mara folded laundry on the couch, I sat beside her and pretended to watch a movie. I could feel the words sitting at the back of my throat like a pill I didn't want to swallow. A few days later, they came out. Mara was at the table highlighting lines in a thick orientation packet from the hospital. The condo smelled like coffee and the lemon soap she used on the counters. I saw the transfer to Keisha, I said. From our savings, same amount as the ticket, and something about a deposit. Do you have a deposit on a place in Portland I should know about? She looked up, surprised, then smiled. You are such a spreadsheet, she said, teasing. You notice one line and build a whole story around it. It's cute. I'm not building anything, I said calmly. I'm asking, this is our money. I thought we were on the same team. She put her pen down and reached across the table, taking my hands. Listen, Mara said softly. Keisha's move is messy. She needed help with a short-term rental when she starts. I loaned her money from my part of the fund. I was going to tell you when she paid me back. I didn't want you to get nervous about something that might not even happen. So the deposit is for her place, not yours, I asked. Obviously, she said, and a tiny edge crept into her voice. Raffi, are you tracking every dollar I spend now? You're at the airport staring at logs all day. Now you're checking my transfers like I'm a gate you have to approve. That doesn't feel great. There it was, that shift from sweet to sharp. Her smile was gone. Her eyes narrowed just a little. Suddenly, I was the problem, not the secret flight someone else had bought in her name. At work, I said slowly, we say if a plane is filed to one destination and the captain secretly points it somewhere else, that's how disasters happen. I don't need to approve your choices. I do need to know if you're planning a completely different future than the one you keep talking about with me. She pushed her chair back and stood. I'm not a plane, she snapped. And you're not tower control at home. I'm tired. I have 12-hour shifts, finals, my parents asking every day about grandkids. Can we not turn one transfer into a conspiracy? We left it there. But the tension stayed, humming between us like the refrigerator at night. If you see your partner flip from honey sweet to razor sharp the moment you ask a real question, don't just focus on the sharp. Remember the flip. The flip tells you they were holding something back before. A week later, the airport offered me a chance at a promotion. A bigger operations role at a sister airport near Portland. My boss called me into his office, shut the door, and showed me an internal posting. "You'd be good at this," he said. "Bigger field, more traffic. You love to check the flight plan. Come do it at a busier place." I told him I needed time to think. On paper, it looked perfect. In my chest, it felt tied to that folded ticket in my drawer. On the bus home, I wondered if the universe was trying to line up our plans without us. That night, rain tapped against the windows. Mara was at work. I was home alone. I went to print a recipe in our small office corner, really just a desk in the second bedroom. The printer spat out my recipe and then kept going. A second page slid into the tray, heavy with small text. It wasn't my recipe. It was a lease agreement. At the top was a building name I didn't know, Keyline Lofts. Under it, an address in Portland. Under that, tenant Mara Ortiz. Start date July 5th. Term 12 months. There was no co-signer listed, but the emergency contact line had Keisha's name and number. At the bottom, in digital script, was Mara's signature dated 2 weeks earlier. That was my location proof. Not hearsay, not a note. A full address for a life I hadn't been invited into. I sat down hard on the desk chair and stared at the paper. My chest felt tight. It wasn't just that she wanted to move. It was that she had already picked the building, the street, the date. We were 2 weeks from a contract signing at her current hospital, and she had already signed something else. The next day at work, I did what I always tell my team not to do when they're emotional. I checked another log without a clear head. I pulled up non-confidential HR notices on my screen, just the stuff any supervisor could see. There, in a list of incoming hires for Portland's airport, was my own name on a short list. Next to it, weeks ahead, was a scheduled background check for a Mara. At a partner hospital. The universe, it seemed, was drawing a path north for both of us. The problem was, neither of us had sat down and honestly checked the flight plan together. I knew I needed real advice, not just my own looping thoughts. That night, I texted a woman named Alina who worked as the airport's in-house counsel. She was in her 60s, gray hair and a braid, calm in every crisis. I'd seen her solve arguments between airlines in 5 sentences. We met at a Greasy Spoon diner near the freight entrance at 10 p.m. The place smelled like burned coffee and onion rings. Truckers sat in booths, staring at sports highlights on a flickering TV. I laid it all out on the table between us. The access log, the ticket, the transfer, the lease. I did not show her the note from Keisha, because that felt like a different kind of line. Alina stirred sugar into her coffee and listened without interrupting. "You know I can't give you relationship advice as your lawyer," she said finally, "but I can say this. In my world, if 2 contracts demand the same time and the same person, someone ends up getting sued. In love, you don't get sued, but you do get hurt." "What do?" I asked. "Tell her hospital she's planning to walk." She shook her head. "That's not your job," she said. "Your job is to decide what you need to feel respected. Tell her what you know. Ask her what her real plan is. And here's some simple advice from an old woman who has seen too many people trapped. Don't let anyone, not a company or a family, sign you into a life you haven't actually agreed to." Paper is powerful. A few days later, the third proof landed in my lap because of something so simple it almost felt like a joke. Mara forgot to lock the tablet we shared when she left for work. I picked it up to watch a show, and the screen woke up to an open messaging app. The conversation on the screen was between her and Keisha. It was a thread going back months, but the recent messages were enough. "Keisha, 2 more weeks, please don't chicken out." Mara, "My mom keeps talking about paint colors for the house next to theirs." Keisha, "That's why you have the ticket. That's why we got the lease. Mara, Raffi still thinks Portland is a silly daydream. I can't tell him until I'm sure about your unit and the new job. I can't handle another sad face. That was my communication proof. Their plan in their own words, not filtered through fear or performance. If you ever end up reading messages that change your view of your life, here is a simple rule. Don't screenshot everything for revenge. Save only what you need to be honest with yourself. Then go have the hard talk you've been avoiding. I locked the tablet and set it down. My hands were shaking. In my head, everything lined up like connecting flights on a board. Money sent. Lease signed. Words typed. The only person who hadn't boarded the plan yet was me. I told Mara we needed to talk before her contract signing meeting at the hospital. She walked into our living room that evening in her navy scrubs, hair up, smelling like hospital soap and mint gum. She smiled when she saw me, tired but genuine. "We keep missing each other," she said, dropping her bag. "You said you had something important." I sat on the couch with the boarding pass, the lease, and my own printed notes on my lap. "I know about Portland," I said quietly. "Not just the ticket, the transfer, the lease, the messages with Keisha, the job lead. I know you have a full escape plan that doesn't include me." For a heartbeat, her face went blank. Then she laughed softly. "Wow," she said. "You've been busy. Did you draw little lines on a board with string too?" "That's not an answer," I said. "Is it true?" She crossed her arms and leaned against the wall. "Keisha is a catastrophizer," she said. "She gets an idea and turns it into a movie in her head. Yes, we talked about me following her." Yes, she got overexcited. The money was a loan for her, the lease was just paperwork to hold a place while she decides. Nothing is locked in. You're turning possibilities into betrayals. That was the deny. Soft, joking, but still a denial of the weight of what she'd done. "The lease has your name on it," I said. "The messages say you're counting down to leaving. That's more than just holding a place." She sighed and rubbed her forehead. "Even if I daydreamed about it," she said, tone sharper now, "can you blame me? My parents have been drawing a little circle around this town and telling me that's my world. 3-year contract, house next door, same grocery store forever. You and I barely talk about anything besides your shift schedules and my patients. The idea of someplace new helps me breathe. You're acting like thoughts are crimes." That was the minimize. I slid one more paper out from under the others. It was a letter I'd found in her backpack when she asked me to grab her wallet the night before. A formal offer from a Portland hospital with her name, start date, and a small sign on bonus. Her signature was at the bottom with a date from last month. "And this?" I asked. Her eyes widened, then dropped. She sank onto the edge of the coffee table. "Okay," she whispered. "Okay, yes, I accepted an offer there. I didn't know how to tell you, or my parents, or my boss. I thought if I had everything ready it would feel more real and then I'd find the courage to say it." That was the partial admit. She looked up at me, tears pooling. "You have to understand," she said, voice breaking. "Everyone in my life has an opinion about what I should want. My mom wants me at church every Sunday in the same pew. My dad wants me on his golf course on Fridays with his colleagues. You love this airport, this town. I felt like if I said I wanted something else, I was letting everyone down at once." She reached for my hand and gripped it hard. "Portland was a door I opened in secret just so I could see if there was air on the other side," she said. "I was going to tell you. I was hoping you'd be excited and maybe even come with me. But every time I tried, someone talked about the contract, the house, the grandkids. I panicked. I let the paperwork get ahead of my courage." That was the emotional move. It was real. I could feel the fear in it. But fear didn't erase the fact that she had already signed things that would hurt people who trusted her. The next day, Mara went to her contract signing meeting at the hospital. I didn't go with her. I went to work and stared at the departures board, thinking about how many flights leave every day with people whose loved ones had no idea until the last minute. What neither of us knew was that Keisha had reached a limit of her own. She'd shown that flash of conscience at graduation, then gotten spooked by what it unleashed. She went to hospital HR with her worries, thinking she could fix things quietly. She handed over a copy of the Portland offer and the text thread. She hoped, I think, that they would cancel the contract and set Mara free. Hospital HR called Mara into a different kind of meeting. They also called me and asked me to attend as her support person. The conference room was small, beige, with a long table and a bowl of wrapped candy in the center. A woman named Miss Bell from HR sat at one end. Mara sat in the middle. I sat at her side, feeling like I was in a meeting about a delayed flight that was actually about a crash. Miss Bell slid 2 documents across the table. One was the hospital's 3-year employment contract. The other was the Portland offer. "We received these from a concerned party," she said. "We need to understand your intentions before we finalize anything." Mara's face went white. "These are old," she said quickly. "Nothing is finalized with Portland. I was exploring options. I'm committed to this hospital. I showed up. I did my hours. I earned that bonus." That was the deny again, now in a room where the stakes were higher. "The dates on these are from last month," Miss Bell said calmly. "You accepted both sign-on bonuses. If you leave here early, we're left short-staffed and out the cost. If you don't go there, they are. Can you see why that looks like bad faith?" "Even if I thought about leaving," Mara said, voice sharpening, "you know what nurses are going through. We're burned out. We're understaffed. Everyone I know talks about quitting at least once a week. I'm not the only one who looked at other offers. You're acting like I've committed a crime for having a backup plan." That was the minimize, this time pointed at an institution instead of me. Miss Bell folded her hands. "We are not judging you for looking," she said. "We are asking why you accepted bonuses at 2 places for the same time period. That is not standard." Mara stared at the table for a long moment. When she looked up, tears streaked her cheeks. "I was going to choose," she said. "I swear, I just couldn't say no to either at first. My parents were so proud about this place. Keisha was so proud about Portland. I thought I'd pick before anything started and nobody would be hurt. I just kept putting off the decision. Paper moved faster than I did." That was the partial admit in a room where it counted. She turned to me then, eyes desperate. "Raffi, tell them I'm not a bad person," she said. "Tell them how hard I've worked, how much pressure I've been under. I'm trying to keep everyone happy and now it looks like I lied to everyone." My stomach twisted. Part of me wanted to jump in to smooth it over, to blame the system, Keisha, her parents, anyone but her. Another part remembered Alina's words. "Don't let anyone sign you into a life you haven't agreed to. Paper is powerful." Before I could answer, Miss Bell spoke again, and this time it felt like a verdict. "Wanting another life is not a crime," she said. "But taking bonuses from 2 employers under the impression you'll commit to each of them is a problem. We'll be revising your offer and notifying Portland. You may still work here, but without the sign-on bonus and under probation for the first year. We will also be reviewing the conduct of the staff member who brought this to us." That last line hung in the air. Later, I learned that when HR spoke to Keisha, she backtracked. She said Mara had never told her about the local contract, that she assumed she was free to go. She framed herself as a bystander who tried to help, not as someone who helped build the secret plan. When the heat came, she stepped away to save her own license. In the weeks that followed, everything shifted. Mara kept her job, but under a cloud. The bonus was gone. Her parents stopped talking about paint colors and started talking about consequences in tight voices at Sunday dinners. Keisha transferred to a different unit and then left for Portland anyway, sending Mara one short message. "I can't get pulled down with you. I hope you understand." I moved out of the condo a month later. I took my bike, my old couch, and my books. I left Mara the chipped teal kettle and the wind chimes. I rented a small place closer to downtown, above a shop that sold plants. The smell of soil and green things drifted up through the floor. After a few months, I applied for that operations job at the larger airport near Portland. I didn't do it for Mara or to follow Keisha. I did it because, for the first time, I sat down and checked the flight plan of my own life instead of assuming it would follow someone else's map. I got the job. 2 years later, I was standing in a busy control room at a bigger airport in Oregon, radios buzzing, radar screens glowing. I had a small team now, younger supervisors who looked to me for calm when the weather turned or a runway closed. I taught them the same phrase I'd used in Colorado. Always check the flight plan, I'd say with a small smile. On the board and in your own life. My world changed in other ways too. I met someone named Nell at the plant shop under my apartment. She ran the place. Her hands were always a little dirty, her hair always pulled back with a pencil. Her job was to help things grow, to move them when they needed more light, to prune them when they got tangled. We took it slow. We compared schedules. We talked about cities, not contracts. The last scene I'll share is from a rainy evening at a small restaurant near the river. Nell and I sat by the window, eating bowls of soup and sharing a slice of pie. The place smelled like butter and garlic and wet pavement. My phone buzzed on the table. It was a message from a mutual friend back in Fort Collins. "Just saw Mara," it said. "She's thinking about moving out here. Asked if I had your number. Said she owes you a real talk. Do you want me to pass it on?" I stared at the screen for a long moment. Outside, a plane lifted off in the distance, its lights disappearing into low clouds. Nell watched my face but didn't pry. I didn't answer the message right then. Maybe I would later, maybe I wouldn't. Life doesn't always give you clean endings. Sometimes it gives you a gate number and a boarding call and a chance to decide if you're getting on or not. That night, I put the phone face down, picked up my spoon, and listened to the quiet hum of the restaurant, feeling more present in my own seat than I had in years. Thank you so much for watching the video. Don't forget to like and subscribe the channel.